Welcome, Sunflowers. Thank you for being here. This is 78 Cards in 78 Weeks, and you're watching Good Journeys Tarot. I am Rosemary, and today we're going to be talking about this lovely card, the Five of Swords. Teresa Reed calls this the card that she dislikes the most, and Rachel Pollack says this is the most difficult card in the 78 cards of the tarot. So we're going to be joined shortly by a guest to talk about that and our personal thoughts on the card, as well as some of our favorite images. But before we get started, as always, I want to share some of what's been going on here. And if you haven't already followed me over on Instagram, do check out the Linktree link in the chat or in the description box below and see what has been going on there. One of the things I posted this week was about the Darkwood Tarot, which I shared last week as my new deck that had just come in. And I really struggled for the last 2 weeks to work with that deck. That is dark AF. I mean, I have decks that I thought were dark, but that deck takes the cake. And it really took me a while to connect with it. And I ended up connecting with it through the sun and the moon. I happened to see them together at one point, and they actually mirror each other in their structure of the card. And it reminds me that, life's the same everywhere, right? It's just different time of day, a different place, a different setting. And so that helped me connect with that deck, right? If you'd like, in the chat, share how you've connected with the decks before. That was quite unusual. For me, that was a unique situation, and I thought I'd share it with you. I did get a new deck this week to treat myself when I went out and did all of the hard work that I needed to do this week, like electrolysis and booster shots and my eyeglasses appointment. Oh my gosh, it's always stressful getting my eyes checked because I'm worried that I'm going to go blind at some point. I've had glasses since I was 4 years old. So they're really bad. Although my prescription hasn't changed in 10 years. Exciting to at least have that knowledge, right? And what's really great is that nothing changed after not going for 3 years, because of the pandemic and all. But I treated myself. That was the reason I was telling the story, right? I treated myself to the Queer Tarot. And it is a bright and pretty deck, and it is very representative of the queer community in very vibrant colors, I'll add. The thing I really love about it is in the guidebook, it's unlike most Pride themed decks that I've seen, wherein the artwork is created for a specific purpose and with not necessarily specific people. This one actually is using specific people. In here, they have all of the people listed with their little pronouns, which I think is just really great and glorious. The main reason that I purchased this deck was the card backs. I love a good card back, and this is just phenomenal to me. This very striking card back, and I actually have edged the cards. I'll show those in a different video to correspond with all these different colors that are in here, including the black and white. So excited about that. I'm going to be working with that deck next week over on Instagram for my daily readings. So today I am excited to have a guest that I have been wanting on my channel for some time. And you might know her from these lovely bags. This is the bag that I had commissioned, so to speak, for the Curious Travels Tarot. But then I also purchased some other bags from her. One was the seasonal bag here, which actually has the Trick or Treat Tarot by Barbara Moore in it. And then I have one with a little potion bottle on it that has the Darkwood in it now. So for those of you who don't know, our special guest today is none other than the fabulous Kelly Bear. Welcome.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And just love my bags. Thank you so
I'm
much.
glad you like them.
Yeah, and she is Kelly Bear Art over on Instagram if you want to check out her bags and see when she drops the next batch. And I've pinned that in the chat as well as put in the description box below.
Oh, thank you,
So,
Rosemary.
what was your first thought when I said we're doing the Five of Swords?
I'm going to be honest. I was like, oh no, I don't like that card. But my next response was, let's take this as a lesson to actually take some time with this card that I generally don't try to spend much time on a lot of the time. So that's what I did. I've been a nerd and been like, I've got like 3 pages of like notes about it because I was like, okay, let's do this then.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, you're in good company. You know, Teresa Reed said in her book she does not like this card, and Rachel Pollack called it the hardest card in the tarot. You know, most people think that's the Tower or the Devil or something, but it's definitely this Five of Swords. And for me, I think part of that is because it is very different from deck to deck, the focus that they put on the card imagery. And even looking at all of these guidebooks I have stacked here that I bookmarked for thoughts that I wanted to share, they each say something completely different about the card. And just as an idea, this book, I can't remember if Ange Marie from Tiny Trinkets and Tarot recommended it or if it was Tony from Antoinette's Intuitive Tarot and Jewelry. But it actually lists like thoughts from a bunch of different tarot writers on the cards. It's called Tarot Dictionary and Compendium. And thoughts. And some of these authors, you'll recognize, and some you may not. But Arian says it's the fear of defeat or the memory of defeat. Cowie says it's conflict. Of course, Crowley adopted the Golden Dawn theme of the Lord of Defeat. Eakins calls it fear. Fairfield calls it philosophical adjustments.
Okay.
Greer talks about the difficulty in communicating ideas. And Pollack says it's defense with a sense of humiliation.
Oh, there's some really good ones in there.
Yeah.
Which book is that?
Stuart called it loss, Wangless negativity, and Riley mental activity. So it kind of comes, it's not just about conflict, I guess, but it's also about the conflict of ideas, which can lead to actual physical fighting, I guess, a lot of times, right?
Right.
Inability to get her points across. So did you have some cards today?
Yeah. Well, I have like over 150 tarot decks. Okay. Now, I didn't go through every single one because I just did not have the spoons for that. But I did go through some of my favorites and pick out some cards. So the first one that I pulled out, obviously, was going to be the Smith-Waite. I have the Centennial Edition. We all know and love. We don't. Not everyone loves the Smith-Waite. That's a lie, right? Some people absolutely hate this deck. This is the
familiar with it one way or the other.
That's the way to put it. Everyone's familiar with it. This is the version that made me fall in love with it, was the Centennial. But yeah, like the classic depiction in the sort of Tudor-esque medieval clothing. And it's sort of it's hard to connect sometimes with this kind of imagery because it's so removed from the modern day, which is funny because some people say they can't connect with modern decks because it's too in current time. Isn't it funny? Everyone needs different things. But the way I remember reading somewhere that the way that these cards were created by Pixie was that they are I feel like I'm shouting because I've got both things in. I'll take one out. They are stage scenes. They're not actual depictions of real life. It's a scene on a stage. And as soon as I realized that, it made it sort of easier to sort of step into or sort of connect to. But yeah, this is the first one I've pulled.
Yeah, and that's something that Jennifer Steedley mentions in her guidebook to the Tarot Disassembled, is the stages, which I'd never pictured them as stages.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it totally makes sense. They're acting out this idea here,
right? And that's a lot of what Pixie did. She did a lot of the stage. Was it like sets and stuff like that? So that makes sense, right, for her?
Yeah. And I do love a good deck that like mimics them. Like here is this beautiful young man in the Five of Swords of the Mermaid Tarot. Looks just like the Smith Waite, but it places in a different scene, as it were, since we were talking about stages, this time by the water. And of course, this is the deck that I just got. This is the Queer Tarot. It almost looks like a disco, but there's clouds in the background. That floor just kind of looks like a disco to me or something.
Yeah, it does a bit.
Very vibrant and shining, but yeah, I have a few cards here to just here's the Life is Like a Board Game. We call it Win or Lose Way, and that tends to be the focus of cards. Like I have a group of cards that are about the winners and a group of cards that are about the losers, but then there's also a bunch of cards that are just about the battle itself. This is the last one that's Smith Waite based, which is the Curious Travels, which I have in your lovely bag that you made for me.
Oh, cool.
And what's interesting is they added this little touch of the winner there being in bandages. So they didn't come out unscathed.
That puts me in mind of the Nine of Wands with the guy with the bandage around his head.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you have some other examples. Yeah,
I had to like reel it in because once I started going through them, I was like, "Oh my god, I don't know how many to show." Because
I have a whole bunch here. I
think we have some same. I've spotted
a couple of bats that are the same, maybe.
Oh, maybe one. I was like, what's Rosemary shown on her? Like not the same, but one of them which I could see and I did see on your Instagram was the Five of Swords from the Sasaribito Tarot, which is one of my favorite decks ever of all time. It's just a really interesting interpretation, and the first time I saw this I really didn't know what to make of it, right? Like it's so weird.
It really emphasizes that idea that someone's getting hurt in this card, and that someone has an unfair advantage in the fight that we get from a lot of decks.
I would also say that it could also, a lot of the things that I read in the books and like refreshing my memory today was sort of the problem with the swords and as a suit is that you can also harm yourself. And this, I mean, I've got friends that have those cat claw nails, they have the extensions. Some of them are makeup artists, and I'm like, I don't know how you don't poke clients' eyes out with them, because I could never do that. If I had cat claw nails, or if I had these, and guaranteed I would really hurt myself by accident with this on. Never mind hurting someone else. I would end up taking one of my own eyes out.
Absolutely. I totally get that. I can't even work with these little short nails that I have during winter. They shatter every time they touch anything.
Oh, no.
But yeah. So these are some others that kind of show defeat in my collection. That's the Urban Tarot. Although this is defeat at poker, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's a different kind of theme. This is kind of a blend of Thoth and RWS, but using the Thoth keywords for the most part. And this one's also a blend of the Thoth and the RWS. So we kind of see this whole, it's called Defeat. It really kind of focuses on this coven practice in magic, I guess, in the Lost Hollow, and has that kind of reversed pentagram and to indicate. And this is not a positive card, as many readers have and writers have mentioned, but this is one of my favorite decks right here. It's dark and gloomy in some spots, but I just love the artwork. I like the whole limited color thing, I think.
Yeah, it can be really impactful.
This is the Edvard Munch Tarot for relationships. Okay. And so the keyword was defeat here. And there's this sobbing woman, which, and so like a lot of the cards do focus on that aspect, the loser, the one who has been defeated, so to speak.
I think the thing that's interesting is I have for quite a few years now, I tried to take that Tom Benjamin approach, where I try to approach every card as neutral until you get the context of the question, and if you're using positional spreads, the position that a card is in, that kind of thing. And so it's really difficult for the swords for me, because they do in a lot of decks skew sort of visually with scenic pips. They skew negative, and I wonder if that's also why I've glommed so much onto really enjoying reading with pip cards, because it takes away that whole you looking at anything that could be depicted as negative, because you're literally just looking at 5 swords or 8 wands or what have you. You know, I didn't pick out any pip cards this time. I nearly did, but I thought I'd keep it to situational. But that's interesting about how you were saying it's usually seen as not a great card. And actually when you said Rachel Pollack says that it's the most difficult card in the tarot, she was saying as in like the most difficult to be in, maybe to come up for you or to be in, whereas for me I was thinking it's one of the most difficult cards to like get a handle on the meaning wise, you know.
Yes. So Kim asked about that card with the Pentacle. This is the Lost Hollow Tarot by Pixel Occult over on Instagram. They actually have a bunch of different decks that have kind of the same theme. This was just the one that I most resonated with of theirs. Yes, when you were talking earlier just now about the first impression of the card when you see it, I thought to myself, yeah, except for when you work with pip decks, which is your favorite now, because you're like, okay, there's 5 swords, 5 of swords, 5 of intellect. What does that say to me before you get to that intuition point? And that's really where this kind of negative energy for the swords in particular came from. The Golden Dawn's placement of all of these different things on the pips and then illustrating them. And so going back to the original makes it a little less intense when you first start, right?
Yeah, intense is a good word. Yeah, it's quite an intense card. What I find quite interesting about it as well is like it's seen as like a disruption or deceit or what have you, but we forget like the swords are ultimately the swords of the mind, the intellect, communication, learning, education, all those kind of things, thoughts and ideas, fears, dreams, those kind of things, our mental capacity. And sometimes I think I get caught up in the imagery of it's like someone's actually just had like a physical fight, and I have to remind myself that no, this is like the suit of the mind and of ideas and communication.
Yeah, it could as much be a battle of ideas in your own mind as it is a battle of ideas with someone else.
So, and it just made me think, oh, I'm not used to. So this is the Shadowland Tarot. I'm trying to get my camera to focus. So basically, the Monica Badursky says in the book for this that she talks about someone might be lording it over subordinates, that whole idea of someone in a role of power, sort of abusing that power, the power dynamic being off. But they also talk about information, and it says sort of be aware of how you are responding to information, but also how you might be disseminating information yourself. And are you hoarding information? And you keep in whatever capacity that is? And I thought that was a really interesting take. And here you see a crow is hoarding the corn from the other crows and being sort of really selfish. And I just like that interpretation.
Yeah, there's an idea that comes up in a lot of decks and in a lot of my reading about, this is a one-sided battle. What one is definitely overpowering the other. In the mystical medleys, he depicted that by a giant winning over all of these other little people, which was kind of fun. In the Bonestone and Earthflash, it's about this kid called Peanut, who stands up to this invading army when nobody else will, because it's something you have to do. It's an idea that you have to fight for, and it's so interesting that he's there in his raggedy little clothes, and the knight is all armored out, and he stood no chance against them, but he had to do it despite the fact he knew he was going to lose, because of his idea was right to him, and he had to stand up for it. So here's some other winners in the battle depicted. Here's the spider in Spider's Web. This is from the New Era Elements. And Although I'm not sure how this equates with the idea of everyone being a loser in it, because obviously one person has gained all of the defeat in this particular image.
100%. That spider is going to be chowing down.
The Spacious Tarot also kind of focuses on the winner, the last man standing, so to speak, versus, say, the loser and the defeat. Yeah. And there's one of those vultures or buzzards that we were talking about backstage.
I've got one here for the Numinous Tarot, which talks
yeah.
about that abuse of power and sort of unequal power dynamics, where you've got a corporate guy and he's stealing the bells from these two folks here. But what I really like in the book for this is they talk about in the reverse position, that all of a sudden these folks, their bells are going to fall back down to them, and this guy's going to fall back into the sea, and so they're sort of reclaiming their power back, which I quite liked. But yeah,
I have that deck, and it took me a long time to work with it because of all of the changes to the suits. And
it used to twist my melon as well, honestly. But I've gotten used to it now.
the Darkwood. I'm getting so confused now between all of the woods in my collection.
Too many woods.
Wow, this has got really a shiny gloss. I don't usually have trouble with the cards like that, but hopefully moving it around, people can see it.
Is she chained up?
Definitely that she is chained up. In her book, she calls this cruelty. And her book is kind of dark too. I mean, it takes a very different take on most of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, last week's card, she introduced an idea that I've not seen anyone else associate with the Six of Swords, which was interesting. So I ended up not sharing it to not confuse myself or others.
Mm-hmm.
But this idea that there's an unbalance of power, right? I mean, in this fight, one of them doesn't even stand a chance because she's bound.
Yeah, that's pretty unfair. Actually, someone else came up with cruelty. Who was I looking at? Someone mentioned, just seeing who was it that I saw mentioned cruelty in what the just seeing if I can find it.
Yeah, there's a sense of the one person being overwhelmed, which, it shows up in the Santa Morte, and also in the Wildwood. They call this frustration. And I'm like, okay, I guess that would work, right? You're frustrated over the fact that you can't win no matter what. And I just love this goat. I just love it.
Flying through the air.
To get away from all of those barrage of arrows. I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful image.
It was Rachel True that said in a reversed position that the five, and I've actually got the card from the True Heart Intuitive, that it can interestingly, she says in the upright position it can mean forgiveness, and that I found interesting when you think of the other fives if you think of one of the fives in the majors that this will link to, which is the Hierophant, right? And you think of the idea of forgiveness. So I thought that was interesting. Truce, hard-fought victory, and ambition, which are not necessarily negative at all. And then, but in the reverse, she says that then you get struggle, bitterness, cruelty, and pettiness. But I really liked this depiction because you're literally seeing this wide-eyed, right close-up eye, and you can see the reflection of the swords in the eye. And it's really like, if you don't like eye stuff, it's going to really like ick you out. But I just like that because that's just a reflection of swords. That could be 5 people putting their swords together in like a high five, even. Like it's how you interpret it, right? Like, or it could be coming in for an attack.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the word truce there, because that's a word that I associate with the 4.
Oh, what of swords?
And yeah, so
that's interesting.
And so for when I think about it today, the story that kept coming in my head was the 3 is about that heartbreak. Someone has totally disappointed you. And then in the 4, you're taking time and you're reflecting on that. You're taking a moment out, resting. And then the girl goes back to the guy that dumped her because she just can't deal with it. And, she ends up back in the same situation, fighting again, right? In the 5. And, it's not
Oh,
until
I
she goes
like
through that
that.
again and again that she finally can move on in the 6 to something better,
Oh, that's so
right?
good, Rosemary.
And so that was my thought today as I was thinking storyline for the numerically. This is the Modern Love Tarot. And obviously, no one's winning in this situation, not the participants or the bystanders
No.
in this case.
Oh,
So
we've got. You okay, Boo Boo? Sorry.
that's okay. And some others that kind of focus on the fight are the 5 of Think from the Hip Chick. 2 people arguing, that idea of communications and different ideas
Are they
combating.
throwing light bulbs at each other?
Yeah, that was their depiction of, I guess, anger or frustration or strife between the 2. They're throwing light bulbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All of the 5s of Think have light bulbs in them. And then in the Pocket of Peers, that struggle to get healthy, that kind of like the idea that we want to do something, but it's a battle to actually get there, kind of thing. So
Mhm.
that it was more about the battle than anything else in all of those cards. I have 3 that I find interesting here left. How about you?
I've got a whole bunch.
Oh, well, go ahead.
I
Share
have
some of
loads.
yours.
Okay, I just didn't want to like hog all of the screen time. Okay, the one that just really tickles me and I think is really cute is my Playful Heart Tarot by Kitten Chops. I'm just gonna have to go extreme close up to get it to come on, camera. Come on, focus. But it shows a bull, and it says in the first line of the book says, "Here comes the bully." So this bully, like literally a bull, coming to mow down these 2 people. But if you look at the bottom, you have 2 characters, and one is on the floor crying, and one is standing up to this bully, and it asks you, which one are you? But I also think it's important not to beat yourself up if you struggle. Like I was horrendously bullied throughout my entire school career. And so I can understand this like position of not being able to stand up for yourself because you get your head kicked in after school. But I do like that you've got this, like, which one are you? Are you going to stand up or are you going to? It's just really cute. And this bull is
Sounds
just.
like we had some similar experiences. It's interesting. I didn't pull it out, but in the Spirit Keepers Tarot, the winner is also a bull character. It's called the
Okay.
Hector. And I never really thought about that idea of a bully. When I see the bull, I was more thinking
like
about
someone
yeah.
abusing power or using
Yeah,
their strength over
yeah.
someone. But what I like about this is it doesn't focus on a winner or a loser. There's still potential for choice here.
Yes, it's interesting
no
because
conclusion.
one there is standing up for the other, which is the idea that Corinne Keener associates with this card, being Venus and Aquarius. Because Venus is that kind of feminine energy, that lover, and then Aquarius is that fighter. So in this case, they're fighting for the people that they believe in, or the ideas that they believe in. And so real quick, I'm going to share the Tree of Life as I do occasionally. This card actually would be a 5, Gavora, which is strength or power. And but it's not like dominance, right? This is about the kind of power that we exercise because it's in that kind of divine feminine pillar to protect others. This is that aspect of wanting to defend others. And in this case, the ideas, because it is the sword suit. And I love that all of those things seem to be, even though that seems like a sort of a cute card, it's not a very, what am I looking for? It's not as harsh as some other cards come across. It has all of that energy, all of that
it's a great
astrological,
deck.
Kabbalistic
The
energy
deck
going.
itself is just, it's like, it's cute, but that's what I love about some of the cute decks I have, or the fun decks I have. They appear really like sweet on the surface, or really novelty like on the surface, and then you scratch and you're like, oh, actually. Another one is like the the Five of Swords from the zombie tarot, and I've spoken many times over the years about how, sorry, I just have to get my camera to focus, how the zombie tarot is a really well thought out sort of novelty deck. The people that made this really know their tarot. So here you've got conflict between two people. They're fighting over their resource, which is this gun, to protect themselves. But whilst they're doing that, these zombies are closing in. And it's like guys, we've got other things to be worried about, right? Like, can we just let it go?
No-win situation,
right?
It's
You need to
Kobayashi
be
Maru.
right. It's you need some teamwork going on here, because these guys are done for, right?
Oh yeah.
They're just, because they cannot work together, they cannot communicate and come to an understanding, come to have a truce, so they can both, not get eaten by zombies.
Right, absolutely. I saw the numinous, I thought, in your selection there, or what's
the numinous I've already shown.
Okay, I must have. Not the numinous. I'm thinking about the Next World. Did I see
the Next World? Yes,
I saw it. I don't own it. I keep deciding not to get it, and then I regret it later. But one day maybe.
I love it. This is the indie version, so it's a bit glossy. But the take that Christy C. Road has, like the whole premise of the deck is that it's very, what's the word? It's very revolutionary. It's very social justice motivated, sort of themed, and it's all about building a better world. So this Five of Swords is very different to many other Five of Swords, because it talks about resilience, and it talks about moving on, and in the book she talks about there are people, corporations or politicians that are in power that are doing things that are not good for the earth or not good for the people. And this woman is she's protecting a plant, and she's got a microscope here with something, I don't know, like a seed or something underneath it, and she's building resistance and resilience to be able to move forward for the betterment of people, just humanity. It's a really different take, and it talks about if it may mean you might have to lose family members or friends or community members who might be, racist or transphobic or just hateful in any sort of number of ways. And I just, cutting out that which is not helpful or loving. I don't know.
Yeah, Robin Wood focuses, her key for this is nana nana nana. So basically that gloating thing, which it totally comes across in her image, but even though that's not really, I don't know, for me that doesn't really resonate. I guess because I usually approach the cards from a Golden Dawn perspective, and it was all about defeat, right, and your loss, and the fact that you had to do this, but you were going to lose no matter what, and focusing more on the defeat than on the winner. But she definitely focused on the winner in her card.
Yeah, for sure. I quite like that. I can't remember which deck it was that I don't think I pulled it out in the end, the card, but it was talking about how I've lost my thread of my thought because I was looking at the cards and trying to find out which one it was. Oh, that was it. It was saying that it indicates that you might be able to success via underhanded means, but it's up to you to decide if that's something that you're willing to do, which I quite like. So you can be successful, but at what price? It's almost like a Pyrrhic victory, right? I kept seeing hollow victory, Pyrrhic victory sort of coming up. But one of the Ostara tarot has quite a simple, almost Pippish depiction of the Five of Swords, which is an adder. I think it's an adder coiled around all of these swords, and it's saying if you wish to pick up one of these swords to defend yourself, you're actually going to get bitten, and ultimately, is it worth it? You have to decide, right? Maybe it's just best to walk away from a fight and not even let the fight begin, but to just be like, I'm not doing this, and step away, which I thought was quite a nice depiction there. And then another one, which was the Wild Unknown tarot. And in the book, there's the usual stuff about defeat and it not being a fight that you can win. But what I thought was interesting is Kim Krans had put the usual stuff that you would see about the Five of the Swords, but she's depicted a worm. And I don't know if it is actually true or not, but the saying goes that if a worm gets cut in half, it then just becomes two worms. I don't know if that's true or if it's just some species of worms and not all. But I was like, well, the worm's cut in half, but it might be all right, you know.
Yeah, it's one of those things like that you pick up growing up, and you're not sure if you were taught it at school or if somebody told
I
you.
should Google it.
But I mean, they used to. I know when we fished, they would squirm forever, even after you cut them to like put them on a hook, you know. And so it kind of seems like it's real, even if it doesn't end up being that way.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. She focused on this idea of it's just not of it not being worth it. So this person is basically cheating. They went through the trouble of creating crib notes on a can of soda rather than studying. It's like, you know, the time it takes to create that they could have actually studied, right? And so no one's really winning in this situation. They didn't learn anything and they've just wasted their time, was kind of her focus here in the out of hand. Which I thought was interesting. I had to read the guidebook to figure out what was going on because I wasn't 100% sure when I saw it. I'm like, okay, what are they doing? Are they counting calories? Or like trying to watch their weight? Is that the battle that they're feeling defeated by, you know, kind of thing? But then you read the guidebook and it's actually supposed to be a cheat sheet on the can for the test. So
yeah, that seems like a lot of work to go to. You might as well just study. Yeah,
absolutely.
More hassle than it's worth.
Oh yeah, Kim's talking about her wish list of things as we're showing decks. Showing cards from various decks. Yeah, I have one of those too. It grows every day. In fact, it grew today by one because of a hashtag that's been going around that I'll be doing Wednesday. It's the Do I Have a Deck, which is from a Belgian YouTuber that happened to see Minabelle Windu this week. So look for that, guys, on Wednesdays. And hear why I need another deck.
All the decks. All the decks.
I only have one more card.
I have 4.
Okay, let's look at your cards.
Okay, so I've got the Fifth Spirit Tarot, which our lovely Sandra here kindly bought me and sent to me last month. And I've been obsessed. I cannot get the hang of this, like the way that it splits the screen. But it's really simple and elegant in getting across that Five of Swords in the Smith-Waite way, but without actually having any people in it. And there is a boat in the background, or I guess you could read into that what you will. But the tattered flag, again, sort of the book talks about a hollow victory and an argument you can't win. But I like it when a book does have some more positives to say as well, rather than just negatives. The Five of Swords in the another deck that I've been loving recently is the Raven's Prophecy, which I rebought last year, end of last year, and it's again, they talk about a fight and that you've not been able to win, and that you meant to hold. This says in the book that you meant to hold tight onto those feathers, and yet they still managed to fall out of your hands. But for me, I read it as you've been wrestling with, I don't know, a giant turkey, and you've lost, and all you've come away with is a handful of feathers. I don't know, but I quite like the depiction of sort of, and also the feathers when you think of like thoughts, letting go of thoughts, or allowing ideas to fall away. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah, that's a deck that I've had on my wish list forever. I've just never purchased it, and
it's so good.
Isn't it based on a book? Or a set of books or something?
There's a series of books that that spawned this deck, but I've never read the books. I would like to at some point, but the deck is amazing, and I loved it when I first got it. So about 4 or 5 years ago, and I messed it up with I re-edged it in a paint pen, or like a metallic paint pen that was so sticky I literally just could not shuffle the deck. And I tried so often to use it and it just wasn't really happening. But like I sort of didn't want to buy a deck I already owned. And so I kept putting it off and putting it off. And then last November or December, I saw it for a really good price. And I was like, well, this is a sign. And so I just bought it. And it was like, I'm so glad I did this, because now I remember how much I love this deck. And this time I didn't trim it. I actually have grown to enjoy the borders. I've left the orange borders on. So it's less faff. I've got a couple more. A couple of really out there ones, though.
Oh, yeah. Let's see the out there ones.
So we've got the Wooden Tarot.
Okay.
Can I get it? By Andrew Swartz, and it's I can't remember the bird. What's the bird that will steal the eggs from?
Isn't it cuckoos who steal eggs?
Is that a cuckoo? I can't remember,
Yeah.
but I can't tell if it's its own nest or if it's returning and another bird has destroyed its eggs, right, or if it's being naughty and it's another bird's nest and it's destroying them. But yeah, I just thought that was quite an interesting take. And what I love about the Wooden Tarot is you get all the extra eyeballs, which is always interesting.
See, my first thought on seeing it was it's kind of bittersweet to
Blue Jay
have kids and then they leave the nest. It's like, you go through all that struggle of raising them and then they go their own way.
Yeah. Jennifer says, hi Jen, says that is it a blue jay, and actually it does look like a blue jay.
It looks a little bit like one, but when you were talking about stealing eggs, the first thing that came to my mind was cuckoos. There's actually several shows based on this idea of cuckoos ending up with other eggs, or where a family gets the wrong baby in the hospital, or that kind of thing. Or
a bit like the Ugly Duckling, right? That's the whole premise of that. This is the Bohemian Gothic tarot, and I wish I had the big book that goes with this, but I've never been able to get hold of a copy because I only have the little book that comes with it, which gives very sort of generic meanings for the Five of Swords, which I guess is why they do that, because then they want you to buy the book itself. But I've always really enjoyed this particular card, but they do mention in the little white book about sort of giving into what was it? Giving into something. I can't remember. There was something about, but I like this idea of he's in a position of power over her, but also she's a bit like, maybe, is it a defeat if she's into it? She's like, I like this idea. Let's go. Yeah, she's like feigning, like, oh no, Mr. Wolfie, oh don't, oh. But secretly she's kind of like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jenna says that she Googled, and blue jays actually steal eggs. So maybe the blue jays returning to their nest, realizing that someone has taken their eggs.
Someone else is like, well, screw you, blue jay. I'm going to do the same. But I thought, I just wanted to mention something that I thought was interesting again, because, when you think about the fives, what do fives mean? And obviously as swords, they'll link to the temperance and to the Hierophant. And Benabel Wen says in her book, Holistic Tarot, the Five of Swords can represent corruption, profiteering, and cunning. And then in a reverse, she talks about recompense and penance. Again, you get this idea of the Hierophant. And then when you look at temperance and you're looking at, is this a fight that you can win? It's not really worth it. It's about that sort of balance and knowing when to walk away from something. And I think that is something that can be a lesson with temperance as well.
Speaking of relating the card to the major arcana, this is the slow tarot version. One of my favorite decks. And of course, you only get little keywords because this was an artist-focused deck versus a reader-focused deck. But they call this victory and defeat. And so the idea that, are you the winner or loser in this scenario? If you're the winner, obviously you had the advantage. I mean, an angel being more powerful than a human, so to speak. Or if you were the loser, well, you were overpowered, right? You didn't have a chance in this particular battle, kind of thing. And I do love that imagery. One of the ideas that came up also from Benabel Wynn, and I think it was in a video or a class. It might be in one of her books somewhere, but she associates she always says hurt people hurt. So this is the idea that we are um, we're attacking out of our own fear or our own anger or being upset, and uh, that idea of there being a corruption there. It's not just simply two people who think they're right, but there's some other underlying things perhaps going there in the winner's life that has caused them to do the thing that they have done here or something. Um, the ideas come up of live by the sword, die by the sword. There's not really any real winner when you reflect on it, kind of idea. So some people associate it with self-interest. So like that whole idea, which sort of relates back to of standing up for our own ideas or for others in a situation, regardless of whether we win or lose, we're doing what we think is right. It's our own perspective. We talked about unfair advantage and opposing ideas. Using shadow side, which you've talked a little bit about reversals. Some of the ideas that I found when in my reading were about old wounds that are recurring, those memories coming back of things that you've done. I totally can relate to that idea of something you've done that just keeps eating at you, regardless of how many times you try to put it behind you, kind of thing.
That's interesting.
Or guilt. But then there's also like an alternate meaning where people will talk about a desire for peace, like really not wanting to fight, right? Of just letting go of it. And or the one that came up that was interesting for me that a lot of people want to associate with death or with the tower is the end, like finality, like this is over and done, you lost. And I think that's why you can move on in 6.
Yeah.
Because whatever conflict there was, it's been put to the end.
That's really interesting. I have a personal anecdote about that, actually. I years ago was in a relationship with someone, and I broke up with them because it just wasn't going well, but I still loved them, and I had to break up with them because it just wasn't working out. But it really gnawed away at me because I still loved them, and so I was like, we need to give this another go because I need to know if there is any legs left in this. And so we gave it another go, and it was like flogging a dead horse, but then I could finally let go. I was like, no, and it was like what you were saying at the beginning about the whole were we live at that point when you were talking about I think we were, and you were talking about how the 4 you see as the truce, and then the 5 is the 4 was the
so it was 3 is where you were heartbroken. It was a relationship. 4 is where you took that time to rest, to recuperate,
that was it, yeah.
Take a truce, but then you decide to jump back into it in the 5, right? And you just end up in the same place again before you can move on.
Yeah, so it was very much that pattern, and then I moved. So yeah, that's interesting. Yes, definitely true.
Yeah. I have to agree with both Teresa Reed and Rachel Pollack about this being the hardest and most difficult card. I had no idea where I was going when I started creating it. Some weeks I'll create the card like the day I draw it, and some weeks I'm like totally lost until the last minute. Yesterday I didn't think I would have anything to share today. So are we ready to walk through my process and see what I did?
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. All right. So we're going to add this back to the stream.
Oh, exciting.
So I started out I decided I would pull the background off of my 10 of Swords and use it because I liked that because there was this idea of ideas, but also blood, the loss, the battle. in that card, and I thought, and then I'll just add some different people, kind of mock up what the RWS looks like, but the idea just didn't resonate with me. And the thing that kept coming to my mind over and over and over again was Twitter, and how, or anywhere online. Like for a long time, I struggled with anxiety, and it took me a long time to get that under control. And once I did, I realized, you know what? I don't need to debate anything online, because people can't see your facial expressions or your emotions that are behind your words. And so most of the time, those kind of conversations just get out of hand. And so, but I was reluctant to go there because I've already got like 4 cards that have a person sitting at a desk looking at a computer. Right. And I didn't want another one. And so I just started playing with ideas. The thing that kept popping in my mind was like in anime and in video games, you always get this whole thing before the battle where they say versus, and then you have the 2 opponents, they start fighting and kind of thing. And so I was like, that would be something cool to kind of incorporate, with that whole versus thing, because that's really what this is about, is a battle of ideas, whether that's internal or external. And so that's kind of where I started playing with it. And I wasn't really liking the thought bubbles by themselves. And so I did mock it up at the desk with the red, the blood of battle, the defeat kind of thing. But this looked too much like the 6 of Swords I did last week, which also had someone sitting at their desk with a map, GPS map on the computer, trying to find their way somewhere. And so I decided to play with the cell phone idea, which was, I think, how most people communicate nowadays. And we will like be texting people and whatnot. And it's easy to get out of hand when you're talking like that, because you're not in real time. And there's this emotional disconnect, I think, between people. And I had played with this idea in the 6 of Cups, but we ended up just placing the cell phone on a table, which kind of makes sense because it's a more passive element. So this way in the hand, it looks more active, like air. So I played with this idea a bit. Some people didn't like the red, which I have a Facebook group called Good Journeys into Tarot. So anybody who's watching, click on the link tree and you'll find that. You'll be able to join the conversation as we finish the deck and work on the guidebook. I've already started posting some things from the guidebook for people to play with. And so I played with some different arrangements of things and the blue. And I actually, what I did with the bubbles was I made one side like get lighter and lighter, as though their voice was being heard less and less, and the others was getting louder, with the darkening and then the red explanation point, that kind of anger coming across. I kind of wanted words in there, but I didn't want a specific conversation, and I wasn't sure how to depict that. So I just kind of went that route. As far as the communication, but and I did versions with and without the explanation point, but and in the final version, actually, instead of making this red, I just made it get darker and darker and left the explanation point red, as that like moment of like, ha, I win, kind of make it overpowering. I don't know. What are people's thoughts on the card as it ended up? Or was there one back here that you liked better?
I like what you've landed on with the red exclamation mark in the black box, because then it stands out more, like you said. So it's giving it has more impact because you're drawn to it.
That's not what I wanted. Now I have to find it again. I do wrong. Well, okay. That's not what I wanted. not that one. It's that one.
There we
That's
go.
the
Yeah.
one. Somehow I reversed everything. How about you guys in the chat? What are your thoughts? Jennifer Ball's like, Jenna's like, I love it. And they like the cell phone idea. I thought that idea of thought and communication in the Five of Swords was kind of interesting.
Mhm.
And I played around with the background. I don't know if anybody can see this or has noticed it, but the yellow where it meets right there in the middle, I made like the center of the verses. You know how it flashes across the screen? It gets really big and then small in video games and anime and stuff. So I thought that little line needed to be right there. But and I like having the blue there, even though this is a suit about communication and air. There's an emotional aspect to it, that loss, that sense of defeat. So
I think also the blue works a lot of the time I know a lot of people will also associate blue with cups because water, but I've also seen decks where blue is also a very sort of swordsy color because you think of the sky and air and blue skies, so that works. But also blue will make also people think of Twitter, right? Because Twitter blue.
Yeah, I try to keep things pretty generic rather than reference like a specific entity in the cards, because I'm using all Creative Commons imagery to mock up what I wanted it to look like if I found an illustrator to illustrate it someday. But a few people want a copy of the deck, so I'm going to put it up on Make Playing Cards with Creative Commons imagery for everyone after we finish these last 8 cards. And while I am sitting here shuffling them, I'm going to let Kelly share what's going on with her and her tarot related stuff and art and everything, whatever she wants you to know about her and where to find her.
Yeah. Tarot wise, personally, I started A Year in the Wildwood. So that's what I'm working through at the moment, as well as just doing my usual tarot practice. But with my art and my tarot pouches, still waiting. I'm going to be checking tomorrow to see what's happening with Royal Mail and the particular service that I use with them, whether that is back up and running or will be back up and running soon, because tonight was meant to be the shop drop, and I've had to postpone it. So stay tuned. Rosemary shared my art Instagram where you can see updates, and also if you're subscribed to my YouTube, you'll see me posting in the community feed when I have shop drops coming and things that I'm working on in my shop there. Things have been a bit rough, so I haven't gotten as much done as I'd like, but I do have some fun new things coming, like little pocket love monsters that you can hold in your hand to ease your anxiety or put on your desk or your bookshelf or carry with you in your pocket, which I'm excited for, because I want to not just be making pouches. I want to be making art, spread cloths and pouches, but I want to be doing new kinds of bags and pouches, as well as some just actual art and one-of-a-kind pieces of magical jewelry, and like leaning more into the sort of witchy stuff as well, because little love monsters, Sandra. So
all right. Well, I have 8 cards left. Next week, Julie Peekaboo Rose will be here to talk about the card that we're going to draw. And then the week after that, continuing our fabulous February. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go over to my YouTube page and look at the profile pics that they all sent me this month. They all look fabulous. I'm hoping that I will look that good when I get my professional headshots done in May for the guidebook. So
nice.
Check them all out. And then Jennifer Phoenix will be here on today's 5th, 12th, 19th.
19th, yeah. I had to think about that.
Still recruiting someone for the 26th. But I want you to help me choose the card for Julie Peekaboo Rose next week. I have 8 cards, so if you want to pick a number between 1 and 8 or a multiple thereof, then we can pick the card.
Okay, I hope it's a good one, Jules. I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna go with 5 because we did the 5 of Swords. Okay, so I'll just go with number 5.
That's what my guest last week did. All right, and we got the 10 of Cups. So we got the worst card in the deck to the
one of the best.
Happiest card in the deck. So this will be interesting. I have no clue as to how I might depict this. definitely got to have a rainbow, right?
Oh, 100%. You've got
Yes,
to have a rainbow.
it has to have a rainbow for that card. So everybody tune in next week when we talk about the Ten of Cups with Julie Peekaboo Rose. I'm sure she'll show us her decks as well as some others in her collection. And we'll do this all again. So I want to thank you for being here
Oh, you're
and
welcome. Thank you for having me.
sharing
I just
with
wanted to say
us.
I wanted to say hello to everyone in the chat, but I haven't had
Yes.
like I saw Strength of Us, Spirit of Avalon's, Sandra,
Yeah.
Jennifer Ball, Kim was here. So I just wanted to say I did see you, but I didn't have my phone. My phone's charging, so I couldn't like comment.
Sure.
And,
Yeah, absolutely. I tried to say hello at the beginning, but a lot of people popped in throughout, and we're glad that you're here, whether you're watching in the playback or that you're joining us here at the end. I'm going to send Kelly backstage and wrap things up with you guys real quick. I'll fit right there. So again, thanks everybody for being here and checking out what we've got going on. Don't forget, if you're interested in a reading or you want to check out what else is going on with me, check out the link tree for all of my social media and my website, as well as my most recent article in the Cartomancer. I am looking for someone to join me on the 26th, and Pogi, who is barking over here. And also, I am looking for some people who would be willing to take a look at the final cards and tell me, okay, they're right to print. Because I'll tell you, interesting story. I showed the cards to Kate Murrah during StarCon, and even at first glance, she found 2 errors in cards I thought I had already finished. So I'm going to probably put those in a Dropbox and invite a couple of you to look and see if you see any glaring omissions on my part. As well, if there's anybody who wants to read through a section of the guidebook for me this summer, let me know via any of the means of reaching out to me. Until next time, everyone, good journeys.